This is where the story gets interesting.
I just start eating. I'm just like, tell me more. Like it got worse and worse by the day with the situation with this buyer.
Through TikTok, I was able to sell that property. It's not just about selling, it's about educating, it's about guiding. You're an expert.
Yeah.
It's not just about the deal falling apart, but the impact it has
On the people's lives.
She's sold every single property she's taken on.
Welcome to today's episode of the Real Estate Talk podcast, where we share the raw and unfiltered stories about working in the luxury real estate field.
Indeed. My name is James and this is my beautiful wife, Vicky. So today we're going to talk about crazy client stories. I mean, there is a whole truck full of this, but let's get into it. So I'm going to talk about a story whereby it was a huge, substantial property, and effectively had two agents on it, and the property had been on the market for over 2.5 years. Wow. So when we took that property on, we knew it was a high caliber client I had to find for it. And effectively I had to execute my plan of action and also my marketing strategy to ensure we found a high net worth individual to buy that property. This is where the story gets interesting. Okay. So within 3 weeks of us marketing that property and being able to execute the plan of action, I was able to find a buyer for that property through social media. Believe it or not, a 16-year-old daughter was learning a dance move on TikTok. Yes, TikTok. Yes, the property was on Rightmove and Zoopla as normal on TikTok. And the algorithm brought my marketing video, which I do with Tyler. You've got to get to know Tyler. Come on.
Shout out to Beamsline Media.
All day, every day. Nobody else. And effectively, from that algorithm, it brought the video, the marketing video up. And the daughter looked at it and go, Mum and Dad, this isn't the kind of property you've been looking for. It was a real big, eight bedroom plus property. And through TikTok, I was able to sell that property. But this is where it gets interesting. The client was a high net worth individual, well respected in many countries. And effectively, it got to the crunch whereby we agreed on a sale, right? Substantial amount in 3 weeks, all agreed. And part of that agreement was that we're going to close that deal in 6 weeks. It got to the point whereby the client was in 3 different time zones that I had to manage. That's the first thing, right?
Oh,
and then
international.
It got international. This guy wasn't playing around. He was international, right? And then effectively, I was trying to get hold of this client at different times. I'm talking, you know this. I was up at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., following wherever country he was going at the time.
Me up too, guys.
Indeed. I had to keep her up. Hey, listen. That's how the money comes in, okay? So effectively, we got to the crunch whereby it came to proof of funds. We saw the proof of funds that showed that the client had the money. But then what actually happened is the reason why this deal actually fell out of bed was because a high net worth individual that has that kind of money to actually purchase this property didn't have a power team to execute. What I mean by that is the solicitors
are the bane of my life.
6 weeks, right? From start to finish, it was agreed 6 weeks the sale needed to complete. And the issue that came to it was that, number one, the funds could not get into the country.
Right.
So trying to manage that was the first thing. And we weren't told that. We were initially told by the buyer that the funds are in the country, we've got the proof of funds, and effectively that was one of the first barriers. Right. And then the one that actually broke the camel's back was the fact that the solicitor was not capable of handling that kind of money.
Right.
I mean, why even get into the whole transaction if you're solicitor or you don't have the team to actually execute that?
Yeah.
That was a very frustrating sale, and that was frustrating to my client, and I had to manage that whole process.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, just because the property's under offer, doesn't mean it's sold just yet, and there are going to be obstacles during conveyancing.
Indeed.
That are sometimes out of your control. Indeed.
And that was very frustrating because effectively we'd already kind of, sealed the deal. We'd already kind of, my vendor had already emptied their property.
Right.
So managing that, the moving out of the property, the emotional, the psychological effects of the sale falling through. But that's the other thing. You're working for your vendor, but you're also, the buyers are your clients, and you're going to have to deal with whatever drama they've got and whatever obstacles they have financially or through their solicitors of not being able to deliver. And I think that's the other aspects of luxury real estate that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Because you have to deal with the people's emotions, people's dramas in their life, and actually understanding how to navigate that.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be, because
Certainly.
you kind of had to keep all parties happy.
Yeah.
And it's hard to balance those different emotions on both ends.
Indeed.
It's kind of like a tug of war between the two, like, you
Yes.
know. So it's people counselling. It's your therapist at some points, and then, you know, as much as you might recommend, you know, a good solicitor to them,
Yes.
not all of them take your advice.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
No, 100%. And we do that. We recommend solicitors to our clients, both buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
But effectively, they still have a choice.
Right.
And if they have a choice not to use someone that's capable of handling that transaction,
Right.
the deal's going to fall out of bed.
Yeah.
And that at that point was my biggest deal. You know, and I had to kind of take that on, not only deal with the clients, but also the emotional and the effect he had on me.
Guys, he would come home sometimes and tell me about this on a daily basis, and I sit there, I get my popcorn out, and I just start eating. I'm just like, tell me more. Like it got worse and worse by the day with the situation with this buyer, and it was stressful. Like, I had to be there for him. Like, I can't believe it. This is happening.
Yeah.
You know, on a deal that's, you know, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
one of the biggest deals of
Yeah.
your career.
Yeah.
So.
And the thing about it is, even that situation happened, the thing about luxury real estate is you still need to maintain that relationship, because you never know when that buyer is going to come back, or who that buyer knows.
And he did. He kept coming back and then disappearing and coming back and disappearing.
Indeed. Until today, till today, we still have a relationship.
Yeah.
Because at some point, even if it's a bad client or a crazy client or whatever it is, at some point they will come good, or at some point you have to leave that door open.
Yeah.
But you also need to know how you manage that distance when you need to.
That boundary.
Setting your boundaries, going, okay, I know that this was a bane of my life, but I need to be able to control it. And it's not thinking about it emotionally.
Right.
It's thinking about it logically.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Going, you know what? Feelings aside.
What's the solution now? Basically.
Exactly.
What's next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's about managing that. So anyway, that's my little crazy client story to share.
Yeah.
I know you've got loads, so tell the audience. They want to know. Tell the audience. Give us an example of one. Your turn.
I've actually got one that it was a property that I sold with Reese Henry, but I'm probably going to talk with Reese. Me and Reese will do a little bit of an episode about that separately.
No, certainly.
Maybe we'll invite him onto the podcast.
Yeah, indeed, for sure.
But do you know what? The other story I have in mind is very much related to solicitors as well.
Okay.
Bad solicitors.
I mean, solicitors, they keep coming up.
Honestly, bane of my life. And especially when first-time buyers are involved.
Yes.
So I was selling 2 properties in the same chain. The first property, fantastic vendors. They chose great solicitors.
Yeah.
The property below that in the chain, fantastic vendors. Their solicitors weren't the best, but the actual solicitor, the company wasn't the best.
Yes.
But the solicitor that they chose, fantastic. And then the first-time buyers at the bottom of the chain, new to this completely. They needed a lot of
completely naive to the whole process.
Yeah, they needed a lot of hand-holding.
Yeah.
And again, it's your job as an agent to coach, to educate, to support.
100%.
Especially first-time buyers. They've not been through the process before.
100%.
You have to advise them on what to expect. So it was a case of I would advise them something, and our job is to try and get this deal over the line as soon as possible.
Of course.
Everyone at the top of the chain wanted to get into the property as soon as possible before the holidays.
Yes.
It was a very, very important, mission for us to complete within hopefully 2 months.
Yeah.
Right?
So everyone has the expectations, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we set that, estimated completion date.
Yeah.
Now, but the issue was the buyer's solicitor was inundated. They were, in my humble opinion, trying to set the timelines for the transaction to what they could handle, rather than what was actually needed and feasible.
Yeah, 100%.
For them, completing within 2 months was impossible. It was unrealistic.
Yeah.
And completely unfeasible.
Yeah.
And when you've got a solicitor advising you as a first time buyer.
Yeah.
that a 2-month completion is not possible, and everybody else in the chain is saying it is,
Certainly.
it looks as though, oh well, they were specifically telling
They're
that first time buyer
yeah.
that the agent just wants to get paid. That's the only
My
reason.
goodness.
That's the only
My
reason they want to
goodness.
complete within 2 months, because they want to get paid. It's nothing to do with you. They shouldn't be pressuring you so much, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
When all the listed solicitors and above the chain were saying it's absolutely
Indeed.
possible, absolutely
Indeed.
feasible.
Indeed. Indeed.
So it just goes to show, when you choose a solicitor that doesn't have the time to prioritize you as a client, and also as a first time buyer,
Yeah.
they don't have the time to handhold you,
Yeah.
to advise you,
Yeah.
and so it's in their best interest to push this out for as long as possible so they can manage their own workload. It goes against, you know, what we do, which is not just to sell a property, but to get it done in a convenient time frame.
Indeed. Efficient time frame as well. And I think that's the other thing, whereby as a first time buyer, they know no different. So if their solicitor, which they're trusting to complete a transaction, is saying to them,
it's meant to be the expert.
I mean, that's the thing, because and when they set that tone, that could have broken the chain for you.
It almost did.
You know, you have two or three people in that chain that are relying on a solicitor on the bottom of the chain to actually take action and actually be in a position to guide the buyers, the first time buyers. And if they don't do that, the whole chain falls down. Right. I mean, the what we're talking about here is like the foundation of a building, basically, as being at the bottom of the chain. And if you don't have a strong foundation,
it'll fall apart.
Everything falls apart. And guess what? It's not just about the deal falling apart, but the impact it has
on the people's lives.
Psychologically, emotionally, the financially, you know, them thinking, oh my goodness, this is a dream home I wanted to buy, and they've got their mind in there. They can see the walk-in wardrobe, they can see, you know, the dining table, they can see the barbecue. Exactly. You know? And I think that's the thing. I think people need to understand that you're not just selling property here, but you're dealing with people's emotions and dealing with people's lifestyles and the impact it has on people.
There were days where I had to call that solicitor and really get them to understand the impact that their timelines or their preferred timelines were going to have on the rest of the chain. Yeah. And it's almost as though they just didn't believe me. They thought I was just making it up to get paid.
My goodness.
You know, and it's a shame that, you know, in my opinion, there are solicitors out there that just genuinely don't care for their clients. Yeah. And when you're, especially because I'm training customer success. Yes. The priority for me is making sure that my clients get the results that they're looking for in as smoother process as possible. And when you've got a factor that cannot be controlled, in the form of a solicitor, getting in the way and creating that obstacle is very, very frustrating.
No, 100%. And those qualities that you have, a customer success and being able to deal with people, is vital for business. And ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know, that's the reason why Vicky, my wife, she sold every single property she's taken on. Yeah, so 100% track record here, guys. That's one of the reasons.
Pretty decent conversion.
I mean, they say I'm trying to rub off her, right? So that I keep my high standards of success rates here. But that is one of the things you know the qualities you bring, and that's the thing people need to realize. A luxury real estate agent is not just there to sell your house. They need to understand how to manage people and how to get the best for solutions for your clients. It's not just about selling, it's about educating, it's about guiding. You're an expert at selling homes. I mean, the thing about it is we don't go to tell a tree surgeon how to chop down a tree, or we don't go to a dentist and say, how do I deal with a root canal? It's the same thing. When you're talking about real estate and luxury real estate, it's important to be able to manage people, and we're experts at it. And that's what we do. So let us do our jobs and let us manage these people in whatever shape, form they come. It's not just solicitors. Sometimes it's mortgage brokers. Sometimes it's valuations. You know, all sorts will come through.
I think there's such an importance in empathizing with everyone's situation. I empathize with the vendors at the top of the chain. Yep. They they were just unsure about moving timelines. They had to book movers. Yeah. They were also waiting on their onward purchase to complete. They were very, very gracious and willing to move into one of their second homes, while to ensure that completion date came to fruition. Yeah. I was empathetic about the vendors in the middle of the chain. They were they just had a newborn baby.
My
you know,
goodness.
They wanted to get
Imagine
him,
that.
you know, to their new home with a
Yeah.
newborn baby in time.
Yeah.
And they, you know, there was a lot going on in terms of their situation.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I was also very empathetic with the first-time buyers because they, as much as they were being ill-advised,
Yeah. They didn't know any
they
wiser.
didn't know any
Yeah.
you know, any wiser.
Yeah,
And
100%.
it's about also, you know, trying to understand it from their perspective. They were also pregnant with their, you know, a newborn, you
My
know,
goodness.
coming to the world as well. So
Wow.
that's something.
So
for
much to
them,
deal with.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's really important to tread carefully and make sure that you're, you know, being understanding of everyone's situation, but just also getting them to understand the impact that, you know, their decisions might be having on other people's lives as well.
No, definitely.
So, but in the end, the
Yes.
silver lining is that we did actually end up getting everybody
fantastic.
in before Christmas,
Fantastic.
which was fantastic.
What a relief,
I'm very,
I bet.
very pleased for, yeah, I'm very, very pleased for the buyers, vendors in that whole chain. But it did take a lot to get there in the end. But
Fantastic.
yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, great story. Thanks a lot
Yeah.
for sharing. I think this is what it's about. Talking about real stories, things that are happening in people's lives, and what we do as luxury real estate agents to actually make sure that we help in getting these things sorted and managing everybody's expectations, how high or low it might be. And that's something that we do best.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, John. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Another great episode of Real Talk, of Real Estate Talk. And please stay tuned. Subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And also, you can catch us on the socials. I'm Doherty Luxury Real Estate. And my beautiful wife is?
Victorious Real Estate.
Fantastic. Till next episode, stay tuned.
Thanks, guys.